Okay, everyone, let's continue with our next fireside session of Procurement and Supply Chain Live Chicago. And I'm delighted to welcome Aniket Kulkarni, Head of Sourcing Dairy at Sysco. And we're talking negotiating for value, not just cost. So a warm welcome for Aniket, please. Now, these are the kind of sessions I find fascinating because we were just talking at the side of the stage there about being a business that not necessarily everyone has heard of, a huge business, but it's a business that everyone will probably have come into contact with. So if I can just get a brief background on yourself, your role and the business as well first.
Absolutely. So thank you for the opportunity, first of all. And just to touch on my role a little bit, so like you said, So I'm currently the head of sourcing for dairy department. I manage around $5 billion in spend. And for those who don't know, Sysco Corporation is the largest food service distributor in the world. The spend is more than 80 billion. And the fun fact is every time I tell people I work at Sysco, the first question is it routers or networking? It's like, sure, no, I buy potatoes for a living, or something like that, you know. I always have fun with it. So I've been with Sysco for more than 13 years in various sourcing-related roles. For the last 7 years, I've been a strategic sourcing role, working in different departments, and now last for 3 years, I've been heading and leading dairy sourcing.
So who needs routers when you can make sure you get your dinner? So let's focus on what's important. Apologies if there is anyone here from the other Sysco. I mean no ill will to you at all. Let's do a little bit of context building first if we can. And our title is Negotiating for Value, Not Just Cost. So I'm going to kick off with that if I can. And what does that mean to you? And why is it so important today?
Right, so when I was choosing this title, right, I just wanted to make sure that it's relevant to what I do on a daily basis, okay? So negotiating for value goes beyond just the cost, okay? It's about understanding the full spectrum of factors that affects your business in long term. Post-COVID, a lot of businesses are realizing negotiating the lowest cost with your supplier often leads to compromises in areas like quality, or supply challenges or lead times. And that ultimately affects your business and customer trust. For example, you can negotiate the lowest cost with a supplier, but if they have inconsistent delivery times or they're going to have quality concerns, okay, that can affect your brand loyalty. And again, that's the bottom line, okay? So for me, negotiating for value ultimately is sizing the business, and when you're negotiating with a supplier, it's not just about getting the best deal today. It's about evaluating, depending on your business, what that looks like, whether it's 2, 3, or 5 years in the future.
And I do find that approach fascinating because it's the simple route to go, well, we'll just go with the lowest price, but don't appreciate the ripple effects that can come from that. So
exactly.
Let's expand on that approach if we can, about how you handle the non-price terms, you know, the risk, lead times, availability, to create that kind of value. What's your approach to that?
So typically, RFPs are associated with price negotiation, okay? That's the expectation. But what I do is I go beyond that and I focus on truly what matters beyond just the cost, okay? So typically what I do is I jot down 2 or 3 critical factors that are important for business's long-term success, okay? And from there, I engage in the negotiation depending on what your business strategy is, okay? So that's going to be your first step. And talking about risk management, okay? So risk management could be, or risk assessment, it could mean negotiating with the supplier on inventory management software, or it could mean just sharing unexpected costs, okay, that comes with storage fees or handling fees or even inbound transportation fees. Regarding lead times, I align that depending on product's criticality. Okay, if it's the key component, I have to have 99, 97% of lead times, okay, or fill rates. And supply availability, I break it down into 2 different parts, okay? First is the critical products. Like I said, I have to have better fill rates, or the best fill rates. On the new and innovative items, I want the first rights, Okay, if you're coming out with new products, if you want to develop product, you need to come to us first because we got the best supply chain, we got the best network, and we have the best supply chain strategy to execute on your products as well. Okay? So it is really critical for me to collaborate with each other so we are invested in contributing to each other's success.
How do you strike that balance, though? Because I'm sure there are many people in this room when they are seeing the price coming back and it is competitive, it's tempting, but you're not necessarily 100% convinced on the other aspects that we've just talked about. How do you strike that balance? Because there must always be that potential to say, this price is great, this is a good price.
Yes.
How do you strike that balance?
So there are multiple ways you could honestly approach it. Right? For me, I focus on what am I trying to achieve in this event, okay? When I'm leading an RFP, is it diversifying suppliers? Is it getting the best cost? Is it making sure you're penetrating into a particular region? And then I take that approach. To your point, yes, low cost will definitely help with your negotiation. Conversation with your CFOs, they're going to appreciate that. Okay? But again, you also have to look at your supply chain, your transportation team, your sales side as well. So for a supplier also, I like to lead with, tell me your top 3 concerns. Okay? When you are coming to a negotiation table with Sysco, what are you trying to get from Sysco? Okay? I will tell you my requirements, but what I need to know is what are you looking in return? If you're looking for a long-term contract and Sysco is pressing on low cost, let's try to meet in the middle, okay? So, excuse me, it's about striking the balance between the short-term gain and also providing a long-term value that will help each other's business, okay? So it's the mutual benefit of growing together. And that's the primary factor for me.
Fascinating. And data is something I did want to talk about as well, about there is so much data out there. There is data on data, and there's probably data on that if you look hard enough. How do you go about using data and analytics to improve those negotiation results? Because it's not easy.
It definitely isn't. And Sysco, again, just talking about that for a minute. Sysco is a legacy company, so we have a lot of data. Again, right, how to utilize data, that is a critical component. And at Sysco, we use predictive analysis. We also use historical data to basically come up with future demand, okay? So we look at organic growth. We also look at market penetration. And when I'm leading a negotiation, that basically becomes the primary factors for my negotiation. Because when you are telling a story to a supplier why they should partner with you, it's about, if I am growing faster than the market, that's your leverage, okay? So what you're trying to achieve with your business, if you share that story, okay, and you collaborate with the supplier, okay, that gives them confidence to get involved with you, not for short term, but for long term, and also inspires them to be more innovative and creative. Okay, they will actually invest in your business more because then they will come to you with newer ideas to say, this has been successful in this particular model, okay, or this particular region, we should try this. And then that's how you contribute to mutual growth.
Well, we've touched briefly on supplier relationships, I think, in every single one of these questions. So let's focus on it in particular. And the methods that work best for you when negotiating long-term collaborative supplier relations. It's, again, a complicated field. What's your approach?
So, I'm sorry, I caught some kind of nasty bug last night, okay, so I'm just coughing. So
that is absolutely fine. That is why we have water, and it's also why I can fill the gap whilst you have a drink.
Excuse
Not
me.
a problem.
Okay. Yes, collaborating or the best techniques, right? Again, it is critical to move beyond just negotiating for price. You have to value the business. You have to look at what value you're trying to bring to the table, okay? Like I mentioned previously, I usually start by asking suppliers, what are you trying to get from Sysco, okay? Just give me 2 or 3 bullet points, just an email, nothing too crazy, but I need to know what you're seeking. Now, from there, I look at factors such as dynamic pricing, okay, flexible contract, price transparency. For me, at Sysco, and for dairy category specifically, clean sheet analysis or cost breakdowns are really important, okay? Because if I know how the cost is built up, that gives me leverage, but on the supplier side, that also helps supplier to justify a cost change, whether it's an increase or decrease, whether it's tariffs, whether it's packaging or corrugate market going crazy. They can come to us because we would already have all those factors listed. It's just easier to get to the next level, okay, get an approval. So for me, it's about, like I said, investing in each other's business and collaborating to mutually grow the business together, reducing the risk or sharing the risk, okay, and leading and ultimately meeting customer satisfaction.
It's incredibly easy for us to go through and celebrate everything that's worked, everything that goes well. We all like doing that, but we learn more. I know this is a cliche, from the things that haven't gone so well. Maybe some of the negotiations that didn't go as you were planned or were particularly tough.
Right.
I'd love to dig into some of those lessons if we can. Can you share a tough negotiation experience you've had and what you've learned from it?
There are a lot of them, but the particular example that comes to mind, this was around a few years ago when Sysco used to have this short-term contract. For Sysco, short-term contract is around 2 years, okay? So, excuse me. So I was leading a negotiation, multi-million-dollar category, and then suppliers, basically after going through a couple of rounds of bidding, I wasn't getting the expected results, okay? So again, I got down to, again, supplier, what are you seeking? The first bullet point was, I need a long-term contract, okay? So that was a tough one for me because Sysco wasn't doing any long-term contracts that time. So this particular negotiation, I was negotiating on both sides. I was negotiating with internal stakeholders. So I had to create a one-pager for my vice president, my senior vice president at that time, get in their offices, why we should have a long-term contract, what are the benefits, what are the pros and cons. Some of the simpler tools that I like to use, one is called PMI, which is plus minus in interest. When you're trying to evaluate a supplier, you basically create 3 columns. Okay, what are the pluses of going with the supplier? What are minuses? What are the interesting things? Okay, and that's how you can simplify and evaluate some of the suppliers. So I did all that and then basically showed the value of doing a long-term contract. Once I got an approval from my internal leadership, then I went back to my critical supplier, okay, incumbent supplier at that time, and I negotiated a cost benefit that spanned over 5 years, okay, and that was 2-part. One was the short-term benefit of negotiating a low cost compared to my current cost, and then a volume-based growth program. So if we meet thresholds, we discuss those thresholds, and then we would get a direct rebate, either annually or based on 6 months. What that did was it provided immediate relief for short term, okay, so my CFO was happy, and then long term, it just continued success. The contract I had negotiated again was around 3 years fixed with 2 one-year extension options. Okay, so it was a 5-year contract, but broken into 3 plus 2. And the reason I did that was because after 3rd year, supplier could extend the contract beyond after that from 2 extra years, but I wanted that willingness from supplier to stay with Sysco. And it shouldn't be, I got Sysco for 5 years, then I can focus on rest of the business. It's like you need to continue to prove yourself. Sysco has to grow, then Sysco makes more money. And then we also collaborated on new and innovative product.
That is a dual negotiation and a tough one at that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Let's look at, we've already discussed the difference between value and not just cost savings, but how do you keep internal teams within the organisation focused on that message? Because you can go into that negotiation with that approach, but if that isn't consistent across the procurement operation, you've suddenly got a complication. How do you make sure that approach is consistent across teams?
So So it's always a challenge, right? When you're working for a large organization, you're trying to make everyone happy, okay? That's just a myth, that's never gonna happen, but you wanna get close to that. First, what I like to do is, of course, start with the SBOs, okay, strategic business objectives. You have to make sure you're aligned on the financial goals, okay? Because that's going to be, again, gist of your procurement or negotiation. And from there, you have to leverage data. Again, like I said, historical data, predictive analysis, trend analysis, whether it's price or volume, you have to engage in those practices. You have to work with your analytics team, whether it's supply chain, sourcing. You have to collaborate with them to make sure your data speaks to you when you're leading into negotiation, okay? Now, internally, you have to frame procurement as a broader and larger visibility into how your negotiation is going to bring value, not just from cost perspective, but from long-term perspective, whether it's transportation, how are you going to improve lanes, okay? From warehousing fees, how are you going to reduce warehousing? Full truckloads, less than truckloads. So you have to hit each of those bullet points to ensure that every team member that you're working with is aligned. So of course you have to take initiatives, schedule calls with the leaders, and make sure you have to list the benefits of your negotiation. Cost is always going to be there, but then in addition to that, how is it going to improve your business overall? That's the story you have to tell your business leaders and procurement leaders and leaders from the cross-functional teams as well.
Absolutely. Your voice is fading fast, so thank you for sticking with us. I won't put you through too much more. I will cross to the room to see if we have any immediate questions. I know I have more. Any immediate questions from the audience at all? Not at this point. No, it's absolutely fine. Because I wanted to go on to the future and the role of sourcing professionals. How is that changing to drive strategic value through negotiation? What are your thoughts on that?
So, traditionally, negotiation or RFPs have been, or procurement in particular, has been associated with negotiating the low cost, okay? Negotiate the cost, execute the contract, move on, okay? But that's rapidly changing with strategic sourcing, okay? Sourcing is being viewed as strategic enablers, okay, of bringing the value, okay, not just executing or executors of the contract anymore. Now, some of the factors that I mentioned, procurement leaders are going beyond just the price negotiation. It's about value, it's about building resilience, it's about collaborating and ultimately getting to the customer satisfaction. How do you improve fill rates, okay? So you're collaborating on a different or multiple aspects based on the data, okay? Again, you have to use case studies, okay? What proved right, what proved wrong, okay? What were the lessons learned, and how do you apply that to either a particular category or on the vast business as well, right, as an umbrella. And for me, lastly, procurement leaders, okay, the impactful procurement leaders would be the ones that can sit at the table with your CEOs and CFOs and essentially tell them, okay, this is the pricing and sourcing strategy that is going to be beneficial for our business in long term. This is how it's going to generate benefit, customer satisfaction, and mutual growth. I think that's the value that sourcing leaders will bring in the future.
Absolutely. Is that difference, as you say, between value and not just cost? Well, you've stuck with the conversation. Thank you so much. I could hear your voice struggling a little at the end.
Absolutely. I'm sorry about that.
Very, very grateful. We will look to wrap things up there now. So our thanks to Aniket Kulkarni. We were talking negotiating for value, not just cost. Our thanks to Aniket. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for that.